Hey friend, my name is Bryce Henson, CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp and one of your co-hosts here at the Fit Body Inside Look. Now this show is for our franchise partners and for those who are interested in joining our brand, where we execute meaningful interviews with our franchise partners, internal HQ team, coaches and clients to be able to provide you more insight and to get more acquainted with our brand and also to showcase the business opportunity available. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. Hey friends, so excited to showcase a new episode of the Fit Body Inside Look where I interview my friend and franchise partner Rebecca Walter. And her husband Justin launched 210 Fit Body Bootcamp in 2022, which is in St. Augustine, Florida, and have been incredibly strong owners, very, very successful out of the gates. And a lot of our franchise partners are taking note to the execution and the success that they've had. And Rebecca comes from a background as a dental hygienist, a very successful one at that, but she had a calling, a mission, a burning desire to inspire fitness to change lives in her local community. And so glad that her and her husband launched a Fit Body Bootcamp in 2022 and have been extremely successful. We're here at Detroit, Michigan at our elite training. She has a few of our coaches here. She's been ingrained in Mastermind and World Conference, extremely plugged in, and one of our shooting star owners, and I'm very excited to introduce you to her and allow you to watch her episode. So enjoy. Hey, Miss Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
All right, absolutely. So we're here live in Detroit, Michigan, not St. Augustine, Florida.
No, definitely not.
Nice and cold. I guess me coming from California, you in Florida. It's April at the time of this recording, but if you can believe it's still a little chilly here.
Yes.
But in any case, the reason we're here is because we have our elite training, which we have two big coach-facing trainings of the year. And you being a rockstar owner, not only here with you, but also to your team of coaches, which has been a huge reason, I would say, that you've been successful for your leadership ability to pour into them, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would agree.
So we'll get into that. But before we do, this conversation just to really give our audience an inside look of you and your backstory and just, how this all came to be. So what's the backstory? Where are you from? And then before Fit Body, what did you do? What was your career and all that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm from St. Augustine, Florida, like you mentioned. Prior to Fit Body Bootcamp ownership, I was a dental hygienist. So this is a much different path for me. I was a hygienist for 15 years. 15? Yeah.
How'd you get into it? What did you love about it? And then why'd you transition?
Yeah, so I don't know. I always knew I wanted to be a dental hygienist. People take so long to figure out what they want to do when they grow up. And I knew in high school, I always loved teeth and I just liked the environment. I've always liked working in teams and I just liked everything about it, the hours. I knew I wanted to have a family and most dentist offices are open 4 days a week. So it just all aligned. So I also am very much once I make a decision, I stick with it. So I was all right, I'm in, I'm going to school for it, whatever. So yeah, I loved it. It's not like I was looking to get out of it by any means. It's rewarding. You have patients just like we have clients now. You change people's lives just in a different environment. You're working with a small group of people that you create these great relationships. So in a way, it's very aligned with what we do at Fit Body. It's just a different type of healthcare instead of fitness.
Well, one thing, and this is just some conversation, just knowing you and becoming a friend of yours, that you said at a training a while back, and it was about focusing on the client experience, which is the theme of this year, but also too the preparation needed. I remember you talking about going through your charts prior to the day to make sure that you knew which clients are going to be there, just that way you're super prepared, and that's what we do here. So exactly. I think to your point, there's a lot of crossovers, and also to your credit, this is why you're super successful, which I absolutely love. So good on you.
So I take that. I worked for some really tough doctors, but
in what way?
In their expectations. But now, and even in the moment, I was mature enough to know there's a reason that they're holding me to this standard because they want their practice to be the best practice in the community. And you're only as strong as your weakest link. So the expectation for me right out of school was you've got to be at a level up here. This isn't acceptable. So,
but was that factory installed in you, and then on top of that, with the experience, or do you think you learned that through your first work experience?
I think a combination. I do think that my first work experience pushed me to that more. But kind of a side story, I grew up riding horses. So I did hunter jumper my entire life, which is a competitive equestrian sport. So I always had coaches. I always had trainers. I was always under a microscope. Your team is you and your horse. You go out there and you do your little course, your performance, a lot of pressure. You have to be perfect. And of course you can't always be perfect. You make mistakes. But that taught me a lot of discipline when you're not always motivated, but you know you have a job to do and you have a skill that you have to continue to grow on. And in that type of relationship, the horse isn't going to do it, right? Like it's got to come from you. It's you. So you've got to get out there every day, raining, hot, cold, whatever you want to do, and make sure you train that horse. That way you do good too. So I think that's where the foundation came from, like my discipline and always having a really high expectation out of myself and the people who I'm surrounded with.
What about siblings? Do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older sister.
Okay. Are you guys close? And did you kind of...
We're very different.
Okay.
She's 2 years older than me.
Is she the youngest?
I'm the youngest.
I would have pinged you as the oldest.
I know, right? Yeah. So I'm the youngest. We have a great relationship. You know, she's definitely involved in my family. She loves my kids. We do have a great relationship. We're just very different people, you know, so it's always been like that.
Yeah, cool. All right. Before we kind of transition out of this, I'm curious on your family. So tell us a little bit about your husband, Justin, who I introed in the, opening, and then your two boys, which remind me so much of my brother and I, which is crazy. I'm looking back 30 years. But just give me the rest of your family.
Yeah, so I'm married to Justin. We've been married. I'm always bad at dates. He's like the good when it comes to this stuff. And I'm like, wait, how long has it been again? It's like 12 years we've been married. And then we have two little boys, Matthew, who is 8, and Andrew, who is 6. So it's fun. They're a lot of fun.
How did you meet? And is he from St. Augustine as well?
He's from Jacksonville, so same area. We met after college, actually at a bar. So I was out with my girlfriend, and I was like, oh, that guy's cute. And she knew him. So kind of like through a mutual friend, but it was at a bar at the beach.
Oh, fun. So tell me a little bit to your two boys. How old are they? Give me the rundown. And just so our audience can know, and Rebecca and I are friends, so we've talked about this offline, but her boys, I want to say, and you're going to be able to color in the details, about 2 years apart roughly, and they are just spitting images of myself and my brother Barrett, and just how they operate and just following on social. So I'm leading the witness here, but tell us more.
Yeah, it's awesome. We are at such a good stage. Matthew, who is the oldest one, he's 8 years old. He's in 2nd grade. He plays baseball. And then Andrew, who is 6, he's like the funniest kid I've ever met. Like, I have no idea where he gets his wit from, but because I don't think it's me or my husband, but he's so funny. And he's in kindergarten. He plays soccer. So we're both like, I'm definitely a sports mom. It's I'm super competitive, and I have to remember, like, look, I mean, it's T-ball, right? Like, calm down. But I'm like, go, what are you
gonna win?
We're here to win. So I have to like simmer. But yeah, it's really fun. Of course, we boat, do all this surfing stuff too, with being in Florida. So it's really fun being a boy mom.
Yeah, and I think you do it so well.
Thank you.
We'll talk a little bit about kind of like the career aspect in your owner experience, but how is it being a mom, a rock star mom, having an awesome boot camp location, but, having a couple boys and husband and all that, also being a business owner?
Yeah. It was really hard in the beginning. We've been open 2 years now, which is still in the grand scheme of things really early on.
Let's timestamp it. What month and year?
So we opened January of 2022.
Cool.
Yep. So it went pretty quick for us. Like, we signed our franchise agreement in May, and then, or maybe it was June, it all starts to blend together. Like May or June we signed, and then we were able to open in January. So it was like 6 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and that's kind
fast.
of by design, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say, to your credit, like, what I know about you is you're an action taker.
Yeah.
You're a go-getter as well. So I want to make sure that's also known as well. So from your perspective, how'd that process go? And, what was there anything unforeseen, even though in the grand scheme of things, you executed really well?
I think it's always unforeseen when you haven't done it. And like for us, we still worked. So during that time, like, I was still doing hygiene. But I only worked 2 days a week, which is kind of what I was getting to with the difference with being a mom. So when I first started dental hygiene, I worked 4 days a week. I had Matthew, I moved down to 3 days a week. Then I had Andrew, I moved down to 2 days a week, which is a big reason why I picked dental hygiene, because of the flexibility. But like, once you're there, but you can really go part-time. So I was working 2 days a week. Justin was still his full-time banking job. So it was hard, as far as all of like the logistics part of it and the contracting stuff and all like that back end stuff Justin did because he's so detail oriented. He's not going to miss anything, especially when it comes to finances. So he...
And to jump in, if you're part of the Fit Body world at this point, you should or will, but we operate off DISC and we partner with Take Flight Learning. And interestingly enough, Rebecca and I share an eagle bird, but the flip side, you're dove, and then I have a secondary parrot. But Justin, we talked a little bit offline, he's eagle, but he is high owl, which means like detail oriented, very precise.
Yes.
You and I need some owls in our life.
Yes,
so
we
that's
do.
a good thing.
And on the flip side, it's hard because it's like, can you just make a decision already? Like, I'm going to lose it, right? So like, it's good because we're never going to jump to conclusion, you know, even with personal stuff, like to buy a new house or like get a new car. He has to really think about it and make sure that we are 100% good to go. And I'm like, can we just get the damn thing?
I'm laughing because I love it so much because this is my relationship with my wife Tatiana. Like we're high eagles is like freaking let's go. And the owls are like trying to analyze every single detail.
What is there to think about?
Yeah. Whew.
So it's great.
Love it. Yeah.
But yeah, of course, there's always like a little bit of friction when you're different, but that's why we're so strong together. So anyway, as far as the build out went, of course it was stressful. We had a great contractor. So I think that helped us so much. Like you do hear horror stories where things get put off and stuff, but our people ran so on time. It was right after COVID, which was different in Florida. You know, we did a little bit better where we are.
It was great in Florida.
Yeah.
I love your governor.
Right.
So.
But with that, there was still a little bit of a demand issue.
Yeah.
So it's like dumb things like doors and like, you know, countertops, like those types of things that should be so easy were a little bit harder to get. Luckily with us, as far as the electrical goes, my dad's an electrician. So like we had the inside scoop on that. And the contractor says that usually the electrical is like the hardest subcontractor, I guess. So we were good on there.
Because your dad.
Because my dad. So yeah, overall it went, you know, as seamless as possible looking back, of course, 2 years later. So you kind of forget all the nitty gritties. But I think the grand scheme of things, it went smooth as far as the actual build out. And then we did open on time, which was perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll kind of talk about that a bit, but let's back that up a little bit and, you know, kind of dovetailing into your role as a dental hygienist.
Yeah.
So you were successful. You downsized in terms of part-time. That was your vision all along.
Yeah.
Good on you. So really, what was the experience with fitness that really got you motivated and interested? And then how did you find Fit Body and how did this all come to be?
Yeah. So like I said, I always knew I wanted to do hygiene. I did it for a good 15 years. I was good at it. I'll, you know, give myself this credit. I'm really good at relationships, so I can connect with anybody. I've always been good at that. Like whether it's a patient or a client or a team member, or, you know, someone that you're working with, like I've always been good at that. And that aligns, like we already mentioned, so well between what I was already doing with hygiene compared to like a fitness business. So I've always been active with riding horses, not necessarily like in a gym environment, right? So I just always had a sport. So I always rode horses. I was active. And then after I had the kids, I did CrossFit before I had the kids, I did CrossFit for a little while. Before. And then I had Matthew and I would...
But let's actually back that up. How was that for you?
It was good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I'm competitive.
Yeah. So like that.
Yeah.
That
so it's like I graduated hygiene school, started working in my dental hygiene job. My horse's name was Chucky. Chucky retired, so like I wasn't horse showing anymore. I wasn't a kid anymore. My parents weren't paying for it anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'm not really doing that anymore. So what am I going to do to like fill that void? Because I'm used to competing. I'm used to having a schedule and being very structured. So one of my girlfriends did CrossFit. She's like, just come try it. So I'm like, okay. So I did. I loved it. You love the community, right? You fall into it. Made so many good friends, and I loved competing. I did competitions, and I wasn't by any means like the best person out there. I did it at my pace, but it was fun because I liked the competitive part of it.
Did Justin do it with you?
Hit and miss.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm always dragging him with me. Like, come on, you can do it. And he's like, okay. So he was not as into it as me.
There always has to be a driving force in the partnership. So I was curious.
Yeah. And so I did that for a couple years. Then I had Matthew, and I would bring him with me, you know, and kind of like pray basically. And then they would help too. Like the coach would strap on the like front baby carrier thing and like carry him. So I had a really good community. And then when I had Andrew, it just didn't work work anymore. I had anxiety taking him because it wasn't, I was working out with like 20-year-olds. They weren't bringing babies. And I'm like, I don't know. I just had anxiety. So I worked out at the house for a while they napped. It was just easier. And then I found a boot camp and I started going to a different boot camp. That boot camp had child watch. So it was just like, all right, I'll do it. One of my girlfriends was working out there. So I did that. And then that's kind of when the light bulb went on as like, wait, I could do this. Like I could own one of these things. Like, why are we not doing this? And I personally never had a passion of like being a business owner. Never.
Oh, wow.
Never. Like I wasn't born with like this entrepreneurship of like, oh, I want to do this. Like I've always, been the dental hygienist. I am a strong leader, but I was never like used to being
and actually I would say even like a leader and entrepreneur are actually two separate things. Bedros, I would say, he's our founder. He's one of the most, I guess, successful and strongest entrepreneurs that I know. He'll be the first one to tell you he believes I'm a stronger leader than he is.
Yeah,
so there are some dichotomies there.
Yeah, right. So to your point, I've always been in that leadership position. I don't have to be, but if no one else is going to do it, I'm like, all right, I got it. Like I'll wait 30 seconds, right, for someone else to do it. All right, you're not doing it, so I'm just going to take control. But I've never had that like business ownership passion. On the flip side, my husband has. So Justin's always strived, always talked to me, that's his finance background of like financial freedom, not being stuck in the 9 to 5. We got to make this on our own. So the small business there. So with my fitness,
Jack, that's interesting because Justin's line of work, he works for a really big institutional international bank. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, it's totally him.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
cool.
So because he's so smart, which is amazing. I mean, I just respect him so much because he is so smart and I trust him so much with like anything that comes with business or finances. He's such a good source to be like, hey, is this a good idea? Because I think it is, but you tell me if it's real life, right? Because I'm the one that's like, oh yeah, what do you mean? That's not hard. And then he's like, well, actually, it means all of these things.
And you run the numbers, it actually is a little bit.
Make sense. And I'm like, oh, well, shit. Okay. So anyway, so he's always had that. And then when I started going to this boot camp, I loved it, fell in love with the community, and then had the idea we could do this. And I came home one day and was like, hey, what do you think?
And was he going to the boot camp at the time? Okay. So he didn't really experience the culture and the environment. He's just hearing what you feedback.
Yeah, I think he went maybe one time, and that was enough for him. So he didn't have what I had. He didn't feel what I felt. But he did have the small business, passion. And
so how'd that go? I know you're kind of like alluding to this. I'm very curious. Like you get excited on this. Yeah. And what's that conversation look like?
I mean, it actually went great. He's like, all right, let's look into it. And he knows too, it's just as I respect him, he respects me. He knows if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in and we're not going to fail. Like failure is not an option. So like if we can get the numbers to align, he can trust me because he knows what I'm good at.
You'll execute.
Right. Yeah. Like I'll execute it. I'll build the relationships. I know I can build a community. Like all of that is easy for me, right? Like that's not tough. What would be hard for me is the business side of it of like, does it make sense financially? What's an attorney? What do we have to pay? Like all of that back end stuff. I don't want to do, and I don't even want to pretend like I'm good at it, and that's totally what he does in the business. So we had the discussion. We started doing our discovery calls with different franchises, landed on FitBody, and it just all kind of fell together.
Why? Like if you were to look back, and it's interesting, like I sometimes look back, I'm like, why did I do this and that? There's, probably a point or two in the process, but if you can look back at the experience, what really, as you were, interviewing other fitness franchise systems, what was it about FitBody that really pulled you?
I mean, I think at the time it just, I guess you would say like our vision and like our moral beliefs, I feel like it really aligned well with FitBody. We talked with Max, obviously, and he was great to talk to, and he made it easy. He answered all the questions, and I'm not like a yes type of person. I'm going to push back, and I'm going to have a lot of questions, and Justin's the same way. He's actually way worse than me, and Max handled it in stride, and I also had some things that were important to me, like at our location, we have Child Watch, and it's because it's my season of life, and that's where I'm really passionate about is like women like me who have have the kids and I don't want them to feel trapped at home, like they can't go work out and all the things. So that's really where like I'm at. So I just remember having the conversation of like, I'm not doing it if we can't do that, because it's not necessarily like totally brand aligned. It's having child watch at your location. And I remember Max went back and like talked to whoever and like approved it. So it just all made sense.
Makes sense. Now playing the devil advocate, because, you know, human nature, we're all skeptical
Yeah.
and probably for good reason for many times. Do you remember, and it might not even be specific Fit Body, but just in general, like what were the one or two biggest hesitancies about going from like, hey, I'm a successful, dental hygienist. This is a whole new, business endeavor. Obviously, you're excited. You saw the vision. You knew you could execute.
Right.
Your partnership with Justin, your husband. You figured you could work on the front end. He could work on the back end, make all this all work.
Right.
But there's still probably some sort of concerns or skepticism. Do you remember what they would be?
I mean, just the unknown, right? So we're not people that like make decisions off of passion. So we're not like, oh, I really want to do this. I have this huge drive. If it doesn't make sense financially and logically, we don't do it in our family. So I know like a lot of entrepreneurs will be like, oh, I have this huge passion. We're all in. We're going to do it. We don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I just actually read a book by Patrick Bet-David,
Yeah.
and the book is Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And his argument was most entrepreneurs, they jump into something so passion-based, and they don't actually take enough time to look at the logic.
Right.
But he also proved a good point, too, that sometimes if you have a plan that's so logical but doesn't have any sort of passion, it's hard to move people with that. So you definitely need passion and motion, but you need logic as well. You need both.
And we had both. I had the passion. Justin had the logic. Of course, we were nervous and scared. I remember we were on the back porch because the kids were swimming, and we're like, all right, are we sending it? Are we signing it? It was like a moment of like, okay, there's no turning back. And you just kind of do it, right? It's like, I trusted him. He trusted me. We had the security of his job. Like he didn't leave banking. And he's still in banking.
Yeah. And let's talk about that actually. That's from my perspective, that's a great way to go about this because, not all of our new franchise partners have their spouse support, but many do. And I do think long term, if you're going to be very successful, one of you has to go all in because no one's going to care about the business as much as you. We're a cultural-based, relationship-based business. But on the flip side, if you have a spouse that still has another piece of income, especially when you're launching it, and even long-term, depending on what that vision looks like, I think there's huge value in that.
Yeah, and it has helped us staying back to the logic, we haven't had to make decisions off of emotion because we have his financial security. So with dental hygiene, I could leave. I was sad to leave. I loved my job. I loved who I worked with.
How long did you work there?
I was actually, at this practice, I worked there for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was between two doctors, one for like 10 or for 7 years and then the other one for 8 years. So
combined 15 years.
Yeah.
So you've been doing it for 15
I've been doing
years.
It, yeah. And the guy, the practice I left when I bought Fit Body, I worked at for 5 years, left for a little bit to have my kids because he was a really intense guy. And I was like, I need to have my babies at a different practice because he's not going to have it, right? So I went and worked for another guy who was great. And then I went back to the original guy for like my last little bit of hygiene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because still always maintain the relationship. He was invited to our wedding. We still talk to this day.
What's the lesson there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much respect for him, right? And like I still go visit him and stuff. And now as a business owner, I get it. Like I got it then because I know how important it is to have a high standard. But now it's like, I understand why you're such an asshole. Because there's so much pressure on you. Like, I get it. And he's an eagle, too.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you say that, really what I take that is like you have a high standard. You're going to hold the standard.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's why we're here at Elite Training. This is why you literally invested for your team to come here, fly from, St. Augustine, Florida to Detroit, Michigan for a 3-day event.
Yeah.
Success leaves clues. Good on you. I mean, that's just an acknowledgement there, but it's really important.
Yeah, and I think it's just professional growth, too, right? So I'm a much different level of professional growth now than I was 3 years ago. I just showed up, did my job, got my paycheck. I was really good at my job, but I didn't have any pressure. There was no stress in that position. So it's just now when you understand what that weight feels like, you get where some of those emotions come from, right? From your boss. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So now, you launch, I want to talk a little bit about you shared with me the kind of decision-making process around like you were the passion, you're the driving force, but then Justin, on the back end knows his zone of genius, which is precision analytics, making sure logic is there. When you launched, did you have clearly defined roles and responsibilities? And I'm curious more than anything, outside eyes, I mean, it looks like you guys work really well together and you know how to execute together. So I would just love some insight, because there's probably someone from the audience watching in being like, oh, I'm interested in opening a Fit Body, and I could see working my spouse, but I'm not sure how that works. So what was the plan going in terms of accountability roles? And granted, he still is in banking, so this is your full focus, although he's been able to support you still at a very high level.
Absolutely.
So what did that look like? And then what's the good, the bad, and the ugly too?
Yeah, so it's definitely not seamless. In the beginning, it was freaking hard. It was so hard. I mean, I left my 2-day-a-week job. Everything was easy, and I've learned it myself, and Justin says this too. Like the other day, he was like, oh God, it's getting easy. You're going to want to open a second location. Because I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. Oh, let's create chaos, Like for some reason, I can't live in this like safe space. I love chaos.
Friends, we're like the same person, and our spouses are like the same person on the back end. Just put that on the table.
Right. And I'm like, okay. So when we first opened, I had 2 coaches. It was just a big reality check, right? So like the vision for me, my vision of our business was never for me to be on the floor, never for me to coach. But I don't know if that's a realistic thing or not, but it was always like, we're going to hire, this is going to be a business, a running business, not necessarily us working in the business like that much hands-on. So week 2, both my coaches quit.
I don't know the story. Yeah. All right, I'm glad we're doing this.
It's a nightmare. So actually, no, I had 3. Sorry, I had 3 coaches because I had Coach Courtney, who's still with us.
Oh, yeah.
So she's still with us. Thank God. She was a rock star in the beginning, and she has a lot of experience. But my other 2 coaches, it wasn't for them. Like, they quit. And here I am, 4:30, going and coaching, which I never signed up for, right? So those first little bit, it was tough because you get a dose of reality of like,
how is that coaching for you? And I'm curious, I'm leading the witness here. I actually believe you'd be a rock star coach from the very beginning as well. That's my guess on it. Yeah. But from your perspective, how'd that go?
I mean, it was sink or swim. And so the eagle came out of me and failure not being an option. I mean, what am I going to do? Right? Like there's no option to fail. So here we go.
Love this.
We're all in. And even, I mean, Justin too, like he took some days off of work and he was B coach, and I'm like, you're not getting on the mic. So he was B coach, and I still remember this to the day because you're so tired, and we still have kids, right? So this is 2 years ago.
By the way, yeah, I was curious because I think you said 6 and 8. So how
now
old?
They're 4 and 6.
They're 4 and 6 when you launched.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's just to set the tone.
Right.
Your kids are 4 and 6 when you launched this business.
Right. So luckily, like both of our parents lived near us, so my mom helped a lot.
Both
with
sets.
Kids. I don't think looking back the kids felt it too much because we always had somebody, and it was mostly me anyway. So like Justin could help at the house, or my mom would come and get home, and that would help. But there was definitely a moment of like, I'm coaching all day. I lose my voice. I'm not used to it. Like one of our members who's still our member today, sweetest person. She went and got me a hot tea from McDonald's with like all this honey, and she's like, you need this, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, like you've got to do it. No one else is doing it for you. And that's when you say no one cares about your business as much as you do. No one's going to feel that weight. Of course, we had Coach Courtney, but she wasn't, I'm not going to ask her to coach all, like that's not on her, that's on me. I decided to open this. So we got a reality check real quick of like what hiring is like, and depending on people and finding the right type of people.
And before you go on, to preface to just our audience as well, no one's a rock star coach in the very beginning, so I preface that, but really what I meant by that is Rebecca, she just has the light behind their eyes, like you can tell she wants to win.
Right.
And you're good with people. So from my perspective, you just have the ingredients. It took time to develop, but that's what I see.
Right. And, transparently, like I haven't coached in a while because it's not where I find my fire. That's not where I get my tons of joy, right?
Yeah, that's
not
okay.
my vision.
Yeah, okay.
It was never my vision. In the beginning, I did it because I had to, and I think I did it well, but that's not where I find happiness in my business. I find more happiness of leading and coaching my coaches to do their best job and grow in that position. So luckily I haven't done it in a long. I know some franchise partners are like, oh, I'll jump in on Saturdays because they authentically love it. I'm not that person.
And that's okay. I'm actually the same way. More just eerily similar things.
Yeah.
I like connecting with people, and the same with you as well. And it was important for me when I first started to, get reps and sets so I can understand what it's like. And I coach one time a year on Thanksgiving, just because Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I like to be in the trenches just to kind of experience that. But to your point, I don't like just coaching on Saturdays, nor do I have the bandwidth anymore. But from a fondness perspective, it doesn't fill my cup. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's an important job, and we have the ability to develop coaches and
so
bring people on your team to do so.
And it all worked out. Like you always say, it all works out for a reason. Because, like I said, it was never my plan to be on the mats and be coaching. But I think because of that, and because I have been in the trenches, I got a lot more respect for my coaches because they're like, oh, she doesn't think she's up here and we're down here, and she doesn't have to do that stuff. So one, I know what it feels like because I had to do it with the family at home and all the things that I necessarily didn't know I signed up for. So it was, even though it was really hard in the moment, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. That way I could really feel what it feels like and be more relatable to our coaches.
Yeah, and it makes you a better leader for them too.
Right.
Yeah. All right, cool. So now just kind of taking a 30,000-foot view, if you can kind of just give our audience, like, you launched in 2022, kind of what's the update, in terms of, your growth, and looking back, and we're shooting this in early 2024, so just over about 2 years in from the time of this recording, like, what's been the biggest blessing and fulfillment you've had as being a Fit Body owner? And then what have been the biggest challenges? And you're like, oh, shoot, like, this is something I, didn't foresee when I signed up that was really challenging, because I just want the honest truth.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I've always been like in a team environment, whether it was the horses or dentistry, but I've never been the leader. I've never been like the buck stops at me, right? So I've always been a strong employee or team member, if you want to say, but I've never been the last ticket. So I've definitely learned a lot in leadership over the last year, I'd say. Like, since joining Mastermind, it's helped me a lot. I didn't join Mastermind right out of the gate because transparently we couldn't afford it. So we had to wait a little while. We waited like a year, maybe a little under a year, and then I joined, and Mastermind has helped a lot with like leadership.
I can see it, like, in you, and good on you. Like, I can definitely see it, like, in good on you. Your team is like dialed in, and of course, like, as a growing leader, there's always opportunity to get better, but it's very, very noticeable.
Thank you. And the birds have helped me a lot too. I mean, I'm a strong eagle. I'm aggressive. I think understanding that, I've always known that. I haven't known I'm an eagle, but like, I know I'm a strong personality. I'm not passive by any means. But learning the birds and understanding other people's personalities, it's helped me deliver a better message without people and I'm still working on it, but like without people feeling like I'm attacking them, because it's hard because I'm so to the point and I don't know why we have to say all that fluffy stuff, but people get offended, right? So I'm okay, I'm offending you. Let me back it up. I'm like, wait, pause. Let me redo that. Because I just go for it because I don't understand. And I mean, my husband's the same way. Like, the way we communicate, someone else would probably be like, oh my God, are you guys okay?
World War III's going on next door. It's like, no, we're just having, we're solving issues.
This is normal. Yeah. And I'm like, you better watch the way you're talking. But it's normal. So yeah, so as far as, I've had a lot of leadership growth, and that's been a challenge, has been a challenge. And I think it's always going to be a challenge because everyone's different, right? So you really get dialed in with your team, and then something unexpected happens and you have a little bit of turnover, and then you have to learn something else. Or, when you work with people, it's never predictable. And I think once you realize at the end of the day that you have to accept everything. The good stuff is on you, the bad stuff's on you, and you just have to not take it personal and figure out how to do better next time. Mic
drop, my friends. This is leadership. This is business ownership. What she just said is 1,000% true.
Right. So that was
excited. I'm throwing mic foams over here. Sorry, Pablo. Continue on.
So that was definitely challenging. I would say the most rewarding thing with like being a franchise partner is the relationships I've built with other franchise partners. I've made some amazing friendships that I never would have made. And when you're in the same boat as people, it's really easy to just relate and have these so like strong, authentic relationships. And like I said, that's my strong point. Like, I'm good at relationships, and I'll own that. And also with our clients, like I've made such great friendships and relationships with our clients, and you see these transformation stories, and it's as the leader, you don't necessarily get the credit, if you want to say, which to be honest, sometimes that's hard, right? So it's like you are pouring everything into your coaches, and you put all this risk out to like build this business and, put your family on hold, if you want to say, and you don't get the limelight. Like, you're not the hero.
No, when things go well, it's the spotlight's on your team, and when the poop hits the fan, it's on you.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, now I get to shine because you guys are pissed off.
Yeah.
Where's Rebecca? I'm pissed. Okay. But there are moments when a client thanks you, or thanks you for the community you've created, and even though it doesn't happen often because I put my coaches so forefront, which is the vision, right?
And in your specific role right now on the bus.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've gotten to the point where I'm not working in the business, I'm working on the business, which is a huge blessing to be able to do that and only let my coaches grow and our location grow. But with that, because I am an in the trenches kind of girl, and I like, the nitty gritty, sometimes I'm like, okay, guys, I am here. Like, I exist too, but I just have to remember it's not about me. And I think just knowing that and being mature enough to know that helps a lot. But when a client does specifically thank you or write you a thank you note or tell you how much your business has changed their life, I mean, that's irreplaceable.
Well, I think that's probably one of the last questions I have for you to close out this conversation, which has been awesome, by the way. Thank you so much. Yes, we got in this business, obviously, from a financial perspective, but also fulfillment perspective as well, and serving the clients and creating transformations. And it's one of the things I just love about the business. So from your perspective, can you think of one of your most memorable transformations? And one, I want to just give you the opportunity to kind of think back and be fulfilled. And also, two, for our audience looking in, chances are they want to experience that same type of thing. So give them some sort of model to follow.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one, which is probably such a generic answer, but in this business, you see so many transformations. Of course, I mean, not immediately. Like, one of my coaches, Coach Kimberly, she'll send me pictures because I think she never cleans out her phone. Like, she'll send me a video from like 2 years ago. She's like, oh my God, look at this, one of our members, and she's lost 75 pounds. Like, when you see them every day, not that you forget, but it's not as noticeable when you're like looking back on a video from a year and a half ago. So we have members who have lost 5 pounds to 75 pounds. Like, we've had huge transformations. We have one member specifically, because we're at the point now where I'm starting to like print our transformation stories and like put them on our wall in our gym. And hers is amazing. And she sent me the pictures, and I asked her, I was like, because she didn't say on there how much weight she's lost. And I'm like, hey, do you mind? Like, do you want to share that? And she was like, no, I don't. She goes, I don't want to share that. She goes, I just want to really focus on how good I feel. And like, that's my message I want to deliver to other women, as like, it doesn't matter what the scale says. Like, you just want to feel good in your skin and feel strong. And yeah, we've had and I'm not diminishing it. We've had 75 pounds. We've had, 35 pounds, 10 pounds, all the things. But at the end of the day, you can see the way they carry themselves differently. They start wearing different type of clothes. They're happier. They're talking about how their marriage has improved. Like, all the personal things that they talk about now with us. I mean, you can't beat that. Like,
amen. I mean, even for me in my own transformation, I lost 20 pounds. It wasn't like I lost 100 pounds, but it freaking changed my life. You have the opportunity to do that every single day.
Right. And when it's just, when you take the time, because you get so much in the hustle and bustle, and me just making these before and after posters, it's like, dang, like, we are really, and I'll screenshot it and send it to our team, like our coaches chat, like, we're really making a difference here. Like, this is a big impact, because these people's lives it's just not the same.
Amen. Awesome. All right, last question. Someone's watching this, inspired. They're like, oh my gosh, I want to be like Rebecca.
Yeah.
But there's some sort of inner voice that we all go through. It's like something holding them back. They know they're meant for something greater, impact and purpose, but something's standing in their way. What would you say to that person in terms of exploring the Fit Body opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a realist, right? So like I'm not going to say like if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you how it is, which maybe everyone's not going to ask me questions because they don't want to know, right? So I would say do your research, right? So no, it's probably not for everyone because it is flipping hard. It's freaking hard. You look at entrepreneurs or small business owners and see that, if they've been successful, they have all these things and it's like, oh, I could do that. That's easy. Let me do that. But it's not. It's really hard. So I would say if you're on the fence, do your research, visit locations, call people. Don't just think like, make sure you have that Al, like I had Justin, make sure you have that person that makes sure it makes sense logically and financially, and also that you're prepared for it, right? So we have had conversations with like new franchise partners that are like, oh, this is a lot more expensive than I expected. It is expensive. Like it's not nothing's turnkey. It's a franchise and you guys help us a lot and there's systems and protocols and support. But at the end of the day, it is your business. So you have to make sure that you're prepared and you're super resilient because it's not easy. But with that, if you've got that fire in you, don't ignore it. Do it. Figure it out. Make sure you're ready, but do it.
Love that. That is the perfect answer and probably a perfect segue to finish this conversation. Rebecca, I'm so grateful.
For sure.
Awesome conversation. And I want to thank you, first and foremost, acknowledge you for being here, first and foremost, for bringing your awesome team, for continuing to invest in yourself and your team and your leadership, which is very clear. But more than importantly, that for just being the person that you are. I just want to clone you and Justin and have more owners just like you because you're action takers. You get things done. You're realist. You communicate very well. Mm-hmm. And I think you are an incredible representation of our brand. So for all those things and more, I wanted to thank you, acknowledge you for today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, friends, I know you got a ton of value, assuming you did. Go ahead and share this episode. That way we can keep producing this content for you for free. And remember that no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself, and the time is now. Rebecca, thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.